Hello everyone, I welcome you to the class of business to business marketing. So, today we will continue from where we had left in the last lecture. In the last lecture we are talking about the technology adoption life cycle. So, which is basically how products and services get accepted in the market, how consumers accept them in the due process of time. So, there we learned that this model was given by Robert Rogers, right, 1962. So, in this model he had talked about in actually one of his books called the fusion of innovations. So, where he talks about the adoption of new product by the adopter groups, right, and there are 5 groups basically which we had seen. So, these 5 groups were can be named like innovators, who are basically the technology enthusiasts, the visionaries or the early adopters, then pragmatists and or early majority, then you have the late majority or the conservatives, and finally the laggards or the skeptics, right. So, these 5 group of people have a big role to play, and especially in the B2B market. The simple reason being is the B2B is a very rational and a very complicated complex market. It is a complex buying system, and it has a the distribution system is entirely different. So, how do products get accepted in the market? Without understanding this concept, it is actually very tough to get success in the marketplace. Why? The simple reason is every company, when it invests a lot of capital and resources. So, to achieve the break even or to achieve profitability, it has to make sufficient number of sales of various units. Now, how do you achieve these sales until unless the market accepts the product? So, the question is now, if the market is accepting and taking a lot of time, so the same time period maybe new substitutes might come up, new competitors might come up into the market. So, then how does a market, how does a seller try to balance out all these situations and still come out successful? Please understand that not all companies are successful in the corporate world. So, many products or many companies fail in the market just because they might have got a very good product, but they could not get a sufficient amount of business. So, let us carry over from there where we had left as we discussed. So, let us go to the stages in the technology adoption life cycle. As you can see, so there is this innovator, right, then you have the early adopters, right, so who can also be called as visionaries. So, this is the early market case, and then after the early market, and then if you come to the early majorities where the pragmatists are there, the maximum amount of sales starts begins to happen here. There is a big gap, right. This gap is like between two different mountain hills, like there is a gap. So, this gap is a big gap, and this gap needs to be filled up properly. Many companies they do well in the initial stage, but here they fall into this pit, and they lose out. Now, how do you cross this chasm? There is a very good book by Geoffrey Murray where he talks about crossing the chasm. In fact, it is called a Bible. So, when you talk about technology adoption and all. So, in this book he has explained about how different companies have been able to successfully cross this chasm, right, or some who could not cross the chasm and they fell into this. So, how then what happens to this early majority? What is this strategy called bowling alley and tornado, Main Street? So, these are what do these different strategies mean, and how they affect the B2B or any company for that, and especially B2B I am saying. Now, technology adoption, just imagine for any product is always a challenge, because if it is especially if it is a radical product or a very new innovation, then the market might not have a pretty good idea about the product, even its application, its usability. So, they do not know how to evaluate the product, and then those cases the challenge lies how to cross the chasm, because maybe the early majority who are the innovators or the early adopters, the visionaries, they have some clue, they have that risk taking appetite. But what about the common mass or the public at large, or the huge the large number of buyers? Until unless these people participate, right, if this group does not participate, then no product can be called termed ever a successful product. Okay. So, the strategies for the technology adoption life cycle is target the technology enthusiasts. So, if you start, so if you look at this, so who are these people? Now, first you have to target these early enthusiasts, the people who are the visionaries in the market, and then provide them with a whole product, right. So, provide them with a complete product, because obviously the visionaries are the people. Sometimes there is a paradox which says the visionaries do not have eyes, or the the technology enthusiasts or the innovators do not have eye. They purchase a product with their eyes closed, that means. Whereas the when you go into the common, the economic class, the people who are more concerned about the price and all, they are people who are always buying with their eyes open. That means what? What does it mean? It is a paradox. That means they always try to evaluate the product from all different possibilities. So, that is why it is said these people keep their eyes open, and these people may buy with their eyes closed, right. This is a paradox. Now, because they are risk taking, so they do not worry, they love to try a new product. But what about the others? Now, in such a condition, a company may go for a very focused strategy. So, we will see that what does it mean, a focused, a niche, trying to attract a niche and target a niche segment, and then be the best at it, and then slowly try to go to the next closest niche. Okay. Then you have tornado and main street strategy. What do they mean and how they affect the technology adoption life cycle? We will see that. Okay. Let us start with the first one. Now, when you target technology enthusiasts, right. So, what happens here? Companies should begin by putting innovative products in the hands of technology enthusiasts. So, after a while, visionaries will see the value of the new technology and will begin to view it in terms of their business gain and all. So, that means what? When you are talking about such kind of enthusiasts, every B2B company, suppose if you largely think about one product that comes to my mind is a software product, for example. Now, when you talk about software products, now software products, if somebody if somebody does not try it out, somebody does not speak, the word of mouth does not spread, how will others believe the product, how will others buy the product? And you you should know that in the B2B, right, most of the businesses are done on basis of relationship, right. Most of the business are done on relationship. It is not like a B2C product where it is which is more like a standardized product, and maybe you can attract people through promotions and all. Here it is largely a personal relationship, or it is driven by the good word of mouth, positive word of mouth. And similarly, if it is a negative word of mouth, so that also has a very drastic adverse effect. So, what companies need to do is they should put these innovative products in the hands of these innovators or these visionaries, so that they, first of all, it acts as a piece of knowledge also for the company where they can go wrong, right. So, the innovators help them in recreating, redesigning the product, bringing in changes, improvements in the product, all that is possible, right. And after that, if it is a very good product and they gain and they enjoy the product, they spread positive word of mouth, and these innovators are looked upon by other the majority of people, and they want to take their opinion, look at their opinion. So, for example, you have seen there are some very famous bloggers, right, and people, or let us say there are some reviews, right, which come regularly. Now, people generally, a common man like me, he would like to look at these reviews, read those blogs and understand about a particular product, a project or something, and then finally decide to be a part of it or not. Okay. So, after the company has made visionaries its customers, right, the sales falter and often go down. So, what happens once these innovators, these visionaries they enjoy the product or they buy the product, after that there is a gap, right, the sales suddenly comes down, right. So, this phase is known as the chasm, as I had said, which was given by Geoffrey Moore, and now the next stage is to take the product to the masses. So, here as I have written here, only few will be successful and the remaining will fall into this chasm, right, they will fall into this pit and they will maybe get extinct. So, the challenge lies is how to jump this gap, this chasm, that is this gap that is there, how do you jump and go to the other side where there is a majority of customers, right. large pool of customers. But here the challenge lies, you can just understand or compare it like a static energy. When you start a cycle, let us say you are trying to pedal a cycle, you are initially you will have to give some additional thrust or additional pressure, so that the momentum, you gain the momentum, right. The same thing we are talking about in this case. If you do not cross this chasm, then you will not gain the momentum and you will not get the sales that is desirable for the success of a company, right. So, in this case, once you think about, let us say, how to connect to the large mass. Okay, the visionaries were fine, the innovators were fine, but how do you connect to this large mass of people who are actually going to buy your product and give you the profits? So, the fundamental strategy for crossing the chasm is to provide pragmatists with a whole product. See, as I said, that giving the example of closed eye, or open eye, right. Similarly, the innovators are risk taking people, so they are okay with a product if it is incomplete, right, because they take that risk, they try to learn, they are kind of that kind of a personality they have. But the people like the common mass like me or others, so what they would like is they would like a complete product. So, they do not want to take chances, so they would like to take a whole complete product, right. So, visionaries will accept incomplete product, while pragmatists will only and only accept a complete product. Now, what happens here? Now, what strategies do we adopt generally? Segment the market into target niches and focus on one target at a time, and dominate the target niches and become market leader and start moving to the adjacent niches. So, what it says is basically the job of a company is to identify the individual or premium or the most profitable niche. Niche is what? Is basically a group of homogeneous customer who are ready to pay you a premium, right. So, you need to target those niche and focus on one target at a time and try to occupy the complete market or become the market leader in that niche, right. And once you have dominated that niche and you have become a market leader, then you move to the adjacent niches. So, anything that is very relatively close to the present, the one where you have done well, so move to those adjacent niches. Okay. The second point that it says is a company needs to develop a whole product and connect and surround yourself with the partners. Now, in order to develop a if you are talking about a B2B product, a B2B product has certain lot of complementary items attached to it, right. So, when we talk about B2B markets, we generally talk about joint demand, complementary goods and all, right. So, in such a condition, what happens? You need to be you have to align yourself with your partners, your suppliers and others, so that in case there is a trouble for your there is a customer wants a service or something, you should be able to immediately respond to that, right. Then the third point it talks about is creating the competition now and position your product. Now, this is very interesting. Creating the competition is generally looked upon as people would say, why should anybody create a competition? Competition is a bad thing, right. For generally people will understand, because it eats away your sales, your profit and your market share. But interestingly, without competition no product can ever survive, because competition is the only thing that helps you to develop the market, right. So, if only one player is there, right, it can never have the capacity to develop the entire market or to create awareness among the whole marketplace and among the all the customers and try to persuade them to buy. It is just next to impossible. So, competition actually plays a very positive role, and here I would like to even say, go to the extent of saying that I was going through an article where it was a very interesting example it was given, where it said even sometimes in case of software products or in case of, let us say, kind of music albums and all, piracy, which is a very bad thing, right, which is never to be encouraged, has helped companies to pass through that chasm. Why? Now, because of piracy, the product has spread into different into the hands of different customers, right, people, right. Now, with the knowledge of these people, the word of mouth for the product has somehow spread. So, even a very negative or a negative word like piracy also has helped in the adoption process of the product, right. Then developing a sales marketing strategy and defining your pricing. So, for example, you need to develop a very good marketing strategy. So, a strong sales team is required, and you have to define your pricing, means you have to develop a pricing model. Sometimes we go for a differential pricing, right. So, on time based, location based, user based. So, you can have a different pricing strategy so that the market starts accepting your product. Okay. And some products that were popular, this is an example I am saying here, some products interestingly that were popular with the innovators, but still could not cross the chasm, were pagers, MP3 players, so these were some of the products that I can think which were appreciated by the innovators, but then the mass market or the one where you actually make the profit, it did not do well, and by the time it reached there, new competition had already come in through, let us say, like mobile phones and all, and that particular product like pager completely became obsolete. Now, this is an example. We will talk about a case of PeopleSoft. Now, many of you must have heard of this company. It is a very good company, very renowned company. So, PeopleSoft, how it crossed the chasm, right. So, this US based client or server software company basically enters into the market initially through the niche of human resource systems. So, HR systems, so that those softwares it started building, and it entered into the market. The management team at PeopleSoft knew that the big wins actually will not come from HR, but rather it would come from mainstream business applications like finance, order processing, manufacturing, etc. But they saw that it would take time for the market to feel comfortable and trusting such new systems. So, if PeopleSoft would directly get into that without having a strong positioning or a strong hold about the knowledge of that particular domain, then they might create not a very good image in the market, and that might boomerang or have a carryover effect on the other products that PeopleSoft might develop, right. So, what PeopleSoft did, an HR application, they concentrated on the HR application, right. So, they thought that it represented a much less risky place for customers, and they believed that the customer would accept this product that they are making. So, PeopleSoft targeted with their whole product, which is a clients HR systems, right, and in a short span of time they became the market leader in the HR systems, right. After this, what they did, they entered the stage where the product gained acceptance from mainstream market segments where they actually could make higher profits, and they started getting into the next phase where we generally call in the technology adoption cycle, which is called the bowling alley. Now, what is this bowling alley? This is the phase where after you jump through the chasm, suppose you successfully jump the chasm, right. So, as we saw, there was a gap, right. So, this gap we said is the chasm. Now, then it again takes over. So, this gap they jumped over, and now they could land up to this place which is called the bowling alley, right. Now, this is a place where a company will only reach only when it has performed good and it has created a good brand image in the market, right. And now people are ready to try out its other products. Okay. So, now bowling alley argues for a niche strategy, right. So, we have already talked about it, that is highly customer centric, and the goal here is to progress from niche to from one niche to the other, right. Now, once the momentum has developed in one niche, it can be successfully taken over, that carryover effect. So, if you have got a good image, let us say in one subject you have got 100 out of 100, your image in the among your teachers is good, and maybe that effect gives you again good marks in another subject, other subject where you might not have performed the best, but still you get an extra edge because you have created a good image. So, here the strategy is for focus strategy. The firm should focus on the economic buyer and the end user in this condition, and emphasize the ROI as the compelling reason to buy. So, companies should think from a point of view that people would always calculate the return on investment, which earlier the innovators was not worried about so much, right. ensure customized solution delivery and use value based pricing. Now, what is value based pricing? Pricing which is generally done on basis of the perceived value that customers have, right. So, what kind of a perception people have for my product, so that will decide what kind of a pricing I can have. So, here it creates a huge opportunity for the marketer to set a price where they can eventually make a very high profit if they have created a good brand image. Now, continuing with the same example, PeopleSoft in the bowling alley. Now, as mentioned previously in the last slide, PeopleSoft led the first major breakthrough in HR, right, adoption, systems adoption. Now, because of this the company gained a reputation as a market leader in the entire client server market. Now, PeopleSoft began venturing out into the broader other businesses like financial and manufacturing and all, right, systems. So, despite competing against giant firms like Oracle, SAP and all, PeopleSoft remained the unquestioned market leader in client HR, which afforded the permanent access to the other marketplaces, right. So, although there were companies like Oracle and SAP, PeopleSoft did well in the HR systems and that could give them the leverage to enter into the other territories where they might not have done well if they have directly entered into it. Now, the key point here was that the niche market leadership can be an extraordinarily strategic asset as one moves out into the broader market expansion. Okay. So, it creates a strong base for operations and the idea is not to settle down in the niche, but to leverage it forward as I had said. So, to use this to use it to bowl over additional niches and to enter the period of mass market adoption, which is then known as the tornado. So, once you are into the bowling alley, so the bowling alley, you must have seen a bowling alley where you play, you throw balls and then this ball moves on and gains a momentum and then it hits other object and it dashes against that object and it tries to dislodge that object. So, the same process happens here. So, once you are doing well and that momentum takes gains, you gain that momentum, slowly it does well and the mass market starts adopting your product, which is the next stage, which is called the tornado, right. Now, what is this tornado? Tornado phase argues for a mass market strategy. So, here now the company is no more talking about innovators and a small market which is very only exclusive to a few people and neither only a niche, but it talks about a mass market now. So, the goal here is to scale exponentially so that we can create huge demand, right, and it is this stage where the demand outpaces the supply. Okay. So, there is extremely high demand that will come up and the company might not have the capacity to even produce or serve the client. Now, what should the company do in such a situation? Now, here firms should focus on expanding the market share, commoditize the whole product for general purpose use, right, distribute through low cost and high volume channels and use competition based pricing. So, tornado strategy is that mass market strategy where a company now is in a position where it can target lot of customers and maybe they can play with in a competitive pricing method and try to come up with lots of different varieties of designs and products. So, the customer has a choice with them. Okay. Now, this is an example of Hewlett Packard HP in tornado. So, HP is a very famous company, all of us know about HP, we must be having in our home or office an HP maybe computer or a HP a printer, whatever it is, right. So, in the printer business HP demonstrated 3 critical strategies, right. First, Hewlett Packard quality improvement process allowed it to significantly increase production, right, first with the laser printers and later with inkjet printers, right. Second, to extend the market coverage, HP began to sell its laser printer through PC dealer channels. So, personal computer dealer channels and extended its distribution channels for inkjet printers to computer superstores, office superstores, mail orders and other consumer outlets. So, they expanded, right. And third thing that they did was they drove down the price points for its printers, moving to below $1,000, then to below 500, and then even below, well below that. So, what they did was, as they went on expanding and they created new, so a lot of innovation happens at this stage continuously. So, the company comes up with eventually much effective products which are much cheaper and which can be easily purchased by the customers, right. So, HP used this strategy again, right. Then comes the last, the main street. Now, main street here we mean that when the company enters the period of an development, aftermarket development. So, this is called the main street. So, what happens here? Now, the company is kind of in a matured stage, right, and it is now the sales will start tipping down. Okay. Now, how do you save yourself in such a situation? So, the defining characteristics of main street is that continued profitable market growth can no longer come from the same products that you were having. So, therefore, a firm must develop niche specific extensions to the basic platform for your existing customers and prevent your customers from moving to any other competitor or try to go for any low cost alternative. So, this is a stage where the company should try to come up with something new kind of designs changes, so that the customer sticks to you, because as you know in marketing we have always said getting a new customer is a very costly affair. So, it is always better to rather pass on the benefit to the customer but to keep him intact, because attracting a new customer is a very big challenge, right. So, you will spend lot of money and the per unit cost per attraction to attract a customer is very very high. So, that is why it is better to prevent the customer to go to a competitor or buy something a low cost alternative. So, here again let us see HP again how it played in the main street main strategy. So, HP matches its printers to the special needs of different segments of home office users by offering a compact portable printer for those users who are space constrained. So, if you do not have space, you can take some these kind of printers. Office jet printer fax for those who do not yet own a fax, the high performance color printer for those who create commercial flyers. So, therefore, by doing these kind of adopting these kind of strategies, they did not allow the customer, they did not give the customer a reason to switch to any other competitor. So, lastly what happens, the end is, in the end a new product appears that incorporates breakthrough technology, right, and promises new solutions for the customers, making the end of one cycle and the beginning of the other. So, this example that you can see here, as personal computers came, typewriters, the fate of typewriters somewhere ended out there, right. So, and today if you can see even mobile is giving has killed several products, right, or even reduce the sales of several products, because in a mobile what not you have everything from a calculator to a let us say calendar to everything to make notes. So, you have so many different things. So, this is very important for us to understand that a B2B firm, and especially if you are into a high tech business or a business like a service industry or a let us say a software business, you have to be very especially very clear about what is this, who is this innovator and how do you cross the chasm. So, once you cross the chasm, things will be simpler, will be better, right. But if you are unable to cross the chasm, why? Because maybe sufficient there is not sufficient number of people who are ready to buy your product, and now the people who are ready to buy, they do not feel that they can afford the product, because the initial price of the product or something may be very high, or they are not aware of the functionalities. So, anything can happen. So, as a result the product may fail in the market. So, it is the responsibility of the company, the strategists in the company, to ensure that whatever be the situation, they have to pass from this stage of introduction or that visionary stage or that innovator stage to the the early majority, right, where you are now jumping towards a more pragmatist or more practical oriented people who will only buy your product when they are given different offers, discounts and different benefits. Okay. And this is the space where you actually tend to make your the survival of the company is at stake and the growth of the company is possible, right. So, with this I will wind up the lecture for today. So, we will meet in the next lecture. Till then, take care. Thank you very much.